I guess I need to be on the camera. What's up, family? Look, we was having some technical difficulties. We still trying to test it out. The devil's busy, but God is busier. You know, uh, because I want to share a story with you. Part of my book journey. I've shared three of them with you already. This is part two to the third one because the third one was so long. I didn't want to do it in one live. So I did half of it yesterday. We're doing the other half today. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully there's no static. And that's what we're about to find out in a minute. Uh, so if you're watching this, let me know if you can hear me. And we're about to get started. So I know a lot of people probably went to my other video, so I'm going to delete that out. But thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. All right, so I'm just waiting on Shay to come in and let me know if she can hear me. But I'm gonna get going because I don't like to really hold y'all up in the beginning. Uh, I used to do it before because I had to share it to all these pages and I couldn't multitask. Is there any static, Shay? Let me know if that static is still there. I'm not sure what that was about. I know this chair squeaks too, but I don't think that's what that was. Ooh. But thank y'all for tuning in. You're going to want to hear this story. If you ever, oh, awesome, awesome. No static, she said. But this is a story you want to hear, especially if you've ever been stuck. If you ever been stuck before, or felt like you're stuck, felt like you was in a rut, felt like you're doing all you can, but you don't seem to be making any progress. If that's you, you most definitely want to stay tuned. You want to stay tuned and hear this message. Oh man, excuse me. I need to blow my nose, but I didn't want to do it on camera. So listen, let me just get into it. I was trying to share it. Oh man, but it's. Let me just get into it. I can share it later. Oh man, so if you watched the last video, now we're coming up to this part where I was desperately trying to find a job. I needed a job very bad. And I finally did an interview with this guy when I turned in my application, and it was for a sales job. And I didn't want a sales job, but out of desperation, I said, "Man, I gotta do something, right?" Because I'm the type of guy that is going to do whatever I have to do to make sure I take care of my family. I was a single parent raising my daughter, and I was afraid I was about to be homeless. That's what it kept feeling like, because it was like I couldn't see my future beyond 2 months. So in other words, okay, I got enough money to pay this rent, but I don't know how I'm gonna pay the next month rent. But God kept coming through with miraculous. I was going from faith to faith, glory to glory, but and I would pray, Lord, just give me a big lump sum to hold me for about 6 months. But that's not how He did it. He would do it weekly, at the most 2 to 3 weeks. Like I have enough money to pay this bill, and it was like almost real. It was always real close. Whoo! I almost didn't have that. I almost didn't make it, and that became very frustrating. And after a while, I got my focus off of God, and I got my focus on my own ability. So like I said, there's nothing wrong with that type of grind of wanting to take care of your family, wanting to do whatever you have to do. Because some guys are deadbeats. Some guys, oh, I'm looking for that dream job and they ain't working. No, I'll do whatever I have to do. I got to flip a burger, I got to cut grass. But the problem was not the grind, not the hustle that I had, But the problem was I got my focus off of God, and now I got to do it myself. And so now I took on this job that was a sales job. And when I took that job, it was everything that I heard about: cutthroat. And it was really the worst job. I think I've calculated with all the jobs I've ever worked, and it was the worst job I ever had. And here's why. So I was working this job. It was a sales job. I never did sales before. Uh, Even though I had books and stuff, and I worked customer service. Now, customer service was my thing. I was a customer service guru. I mastered customer service, so I did that. But it's a little bit different. Sales is a little bit different. They all related. They all comparable. But I was a good manager, and I was good at customer service. So I took that what I knew into sales, but I had to learn the whole process of sales. Sales is a little bit different, but I did it. I did like I do with everything else. I try to learn about it. I watched videos. I read books. I talked to people who's already succeeding, and I was doing okay. I wasn't the best at it, but I was okay. Right? I was still learning, and but what I noticed was the top salespeople were the top liars. This is all relative. This is all relevant to what I'm about to tell you. Now. Listen, the top salespeople were the top liars. All right. Now, if you don't know by now, I'm a man of integrity. In other words, I'm not going to deceive to prosper. You follow me? And plus, the people that I was learning from were people of integrity, right? But what I kept seeing in my world, even though I'm learning from people who saying do it this way, and these were successful people, but in my world, what I could see, I didn't see that. I wasn't doing. I was just doing okay. But the ones who were succeeding were the ones who were dishonest and the ones who lied. Why is this relevant? Because remember, I'm in a situation where I'm desperate. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to make money. Here's the temptation to be dishonest. But I wasn't. I said, no, I'm not going to be dishonest. And it was a horrible job. Let me explain. As a matter of fact, I wrote about it. If you ever read this book here, I wrote a little bit about this, and I'm gonna read some of it just to give you an idea of what I was going through. I want you to picture yourself and put yourself in my shoes, okay? And I'm just gonna read out of this, and then we gonna go from there and get to so. Remember, I wrote my book Life and Righteousness. 15 months later, I wrote 30 Days of Righteousness. Now, whatever devil was supposed to come out in 2014, but I have gotten totally off track. I've gotten totally distracted, and now I'm focused on surviving, and I'm working on this job, right? Now, remind you, I had sold a lot of books. I had a newsletter that had over 2,000 people signed up to it. And so I had a following. I was doing all this entrepreneur stuff, but now I have put all this on hold. I put everything on hold because I'm working this job. All right. So let me just read a little bit. Let's see. Where can I start? This position required long hours. So first I started working this job and I was working very, very long hours. I was coming in early in the morning and going home at night. And check this out. Everything was based on performance. So the pressure to perform made it a very stressful job. This company had a high turnover rate. So what that means is that people were getting fired every week. Somebody was getting fired. They had a high turnover rate. So nothing is looking good about this job. So I'm working this job. It was very stressful. They had a high turnover rate, right? It seemed like every other week, two or three people were getting fired. This made me paranoid, wondering, am I next? So every day I came to work, I was scared that I was about to get fired. The leaders would never commend the employees for doing well, but always highlighted our mistakes. So the leaders, so look at the pressure. People getting fired. If you did good, you just did good. Ain't nobody congratulate you. Ain't nobody tell you you're doing a good job. Ain't nobody encourage you. But if you made a mistake, boy, they made you pay for it and they highlighted it. If you got no sales, they would embarrass you in front of everybody. I remember one day I didn't have a sale that day, and when I was getting ready to go home, the manager said, "Buy goose eggs," doing the zero because I didn't make any sales, and everybody started laughing. This is the job I was at. I'm not gonna say the business name, but it was a sales job. All right. They would, and then if you made a mistake, they will penalize you for it. They'll take some out of your paycheck if you made a mistake. I've seen them do that. And here's the part right here. And you would think with all this pressure, stress, and long hours, you would think that I made a lot of money. You would think, man, okay, I'm stressing over this job, but I'm making a whole lot of money. But I was making minimum wage. Minimum wage. Now you had the potential to make a lot of money with the sales, but if you didn't make enough sales, you was making minimum wage, right? In some kind of way, well, let me just keep reading a little bit. Then we're gonna get deep into it. Like I said, there was only a couple top salesmen who made the most money, and they were the ones who did all the lying. They had the most complaints too. And I remember one time the owner of this business, the owner, not the manager, the owner told me, he said, "You're going to have to start lying to these people if you want to make it. You're going to have to start lying." And so I felt pressured because I was like, man, the people I'm learning from, the books I'm reading and stuff, they're saying doing it this way. And I'm a person of integrity. I like the process that they're giving me, but I'm applying it and I'm not seeing it. I seen it work a little bit, but the people who's walking around making all the money are the ones who's deceiving and lying and doing this. Now here's the owner saying, you're going to have to, if you want to succeed in this business, you're going to have to start lying to people. When you see stuff that's back ordered, you don't need to tell them it's back ordered. You just need to order, and when they start looking for it, just say, blame the truck. Hey, it didn't come in on the truck or something. Oh, man. So I struggle financially, and I begin to get trapped by trying to survive. And I didn't even realize it. So check this out. This was 2014. Now I was doing speaking. Prior to that, I was doing speaking engagements, guest appearances on radio stations. Had a news over 2,000 people. My newsletter. I was writing newsletters too. And all of a sudden, here I am. They're totally distracted. I hadn't written a newsletter. I hadn't did a speaking engagement for almost 7 months before I realized it, because I had caught up in fear. I was like a hamster on a treadmill. I got caught up in fear trying to survive on this job. And I'm walking around scared I'm going to get fired. And I'm trying to do good, but I'm just doing okay. I'm making minimum wage. My bill's still barely getting paid. And I began to forget who I was. I began to forget who I was. By the time I got home after working long hours, I was too tired to do anything. So everything that dealt with my purpose began to slack. I wasn't writing as much anymore. I was no longer consistent with my newsletter followings. My speaking engagement came to a halt. I was working on my third book, this book right here. And I had to put it on hold because I didn't have enough time. Life became about work and providing for my family. I became totally distracted with trying to survive. Please don't misunderstand me. I didn't stray away from the faith. I still love God. I went to church when I didn't have to work, but I had to work most of the Sundays. That's the other thing I've got to say. I had to start working Sundays, and so I couldn't go to church anymore. So listen, this here's the scary part. I didn't stray away from the faith. So I don't want you to misunderstand. I didn't backslide. I didn't give up on God. I didn't stray away from the faith. But it probably would have been better if I did, because at least then I could point it. I have something to point at and say, hey, here's a problem and I need to fix it. But I was blinded, not even knowing. You know how they say they put I don't know if you ever heard what they say, they put a frog in water and they boil it. They don't know they're being boiled till they about half dead. That's how I was. I was so busy, caught up, trying to in my own ability, and it wasn't working, barely. And I was chasing this rabbit. I was chasing this. You follow what I'm saying? I'm just working and working and working, and totally distracted from my purpose. I was still a man of God. The only difference was I wasn't teaching and writing much anymore. In other words, I was still living a Christian life, but I wasn't doing my purpose. That's one of the most dangerous places to be. I was still living a Christian life, right? Listen, I was still living a Christian life, but I wasn't doing my purpose. I was still a believer, but I wasn't doing what God told me to do. I wasn't doing my assignment. I wasn't doing my vision. I wasn't fulfilling my dream. Yeah, I was still a Christian. I still love God, but I'm distracted. I was so distracted that 7 months had passed before I realized that I hadn't had a speaking engagement. I had worked on the book, the newsletter. I hadn't worked on the book, the newsletter, anything, right? And I'm on page 129 if you want to read along. You don't have to, but I was still a believer, but I was still struggling and I wasn't getting any direction from God. And I kept thinking, why does it feel like I'm doing everything right, but everything's going so wrong? I kept saying, does it feel like I'm doing everything right? I'm trying to provide for my family. I'm trying to hustle. I'm trying to grind, but everything's going wrong. And then during this process, I stopped hearing from God. Out of all the years I've been saved, from the day I became a Christian all the way to this point, I never went without hearing his voice. But now I'm not hearing anything. It's like I'm just out here on my own. And I wasn't hearing God. I wasn't getting any instructions. I wasn't hearing, it's like I was just in another whole world. Like I said, I was still a Christian. I still love God, but I'm like, God, where you at? I mean, I need some help here. I'm at this job and I'm barely making it. By the 10th month, so now it's 10 months now, I was so deeply distracted that discouragement began to ripple into many parts of my life. My faith was diminishing. My self-esteem was decreasing. I felt defeated. I didn't feel like the person who God called me to be. I forgot who I was. I wasn't Billy Miller, the motivational minister no more. I was just a little old weak Christian. I knew I was in trouble, but I was wise enough to know that God is not the problem here. So I knew I wasn't mad at God. I wasn't mad at God. I hope y'all getting something out of this. I wasn't mad at God, but I needed to get it right. And you know what happened? I was talking with my girlfriend, and she said, "All you talk about is furniture fair." I'm sorry. All you talk about is All you talk about is this business. Some of y'all will catch that when you watch the replay. All you talking about is you complain and complain, and that's all I talked about. When I talked to my daughter, she said, "That's all you talk about." I didn't even realize even the people around me are stressed because that's all I'm talking about. I ain't talking about nothing else but how I hate this job and how distracted I am, and how they complaining and complaining. It was rough. It was rough. It was rough, man. Oh man. One day, God sent in a guy named Jason Mitchell. Jason Mitchell was a guy I met previously when I was Billy Miller, a motivational minister, right? Before I got distracted, before I got lost, before I got so focused on forgetting who I was. And I helped him out. Uh, I was part of him figuring out his vision and his purpose. And he came into this business where I was at to find me. It was God sending him. Because remember, I wasn't hearing from God. I don't forgot who I was. I'm totally distracted. The man came in, Jason, he came all the way down there to that business just to thank me for the connection, thank me for helping him. God sent him there pretty much to remind me of who I was. The person he was talking about wasn't the person that was standing in front of him. I felt like I was a whole different person. And he refreshed me of who I was. And I began for a moment to remember, wait a minute. I began to remember who I am. I began to remember who God called me to be. And I had a moment, and I remember sowing into this. I was the first person to sow into his ministry. He was going into the ministry 4 times, and I was a part of that process. And I said, man, I got to be the first one to sow into the ministry, and I sowed into the ministry. The next month, no, it wasn't even that long, but this particular month that this happened, something happened. Something strange happened. I began to prosper on my job. And I began that particular month. Oh man, I was selling, man. That particular month, also in that particular month, it was a guy who invited me to be a special guest on his broadcast. And I did it. I said, man, I hadn't done it so long. Most definitely I need to do it. I did this broadcast. I began to feel like the old me. And when I did this broadcast, coincidentally, coincidences when God don't exist. I'm just saying it like that. That's the same month I started to prosper on the job. I mean, I was selling like crazy. I mean, people was coming. I had 4 or 5 people in the store at the same time. I remember. And I remember the owner said, this was his way of encouraging, but it just what it was. He was like, "Oh, you ain't gonna be in the top." He said, "I tell you what, if you're in the top 3, I give you $100." Because I was just okay. I was just mediocre, and they was like, "Oh, you just lucky this week." He said, "At the end of the month, if you were the top 3, I give you $100." And by the end of the month, that was the best month I ever had. But I want you to pay attention to something. Notice that the moment I focused on my purpose is the moment I started to prosper. The moment I focused on my purpose is the very moment I started to prosper. And I did good, man. I got that $100 too. I think I came in like second or something. And for the first time, man, I was like, oh man, I got it. I finally finally had a breakthrough. I finally, doing something good. And I made some money that month. I'll never forget. That's the first time I made some money. Ah, man, listen, I hope y'all get some. Listen, I know this is a little different from how I normally do because I normally teach and stuff, but this is part of a story. This is my story. And so, and let me go and wrap it up because I don't want to hold you too long. But I began to prosper. That was the best month I ever had. But I still didn't turn all the way back to who I was. I just had that little moment. And that little moment that I did that broadcast, that little moment that Jason Mitchell came in and reminded me who I was, that was the moment I prospered. But then I slowly but surely just went back to, you know, trying to work this out of my own ability. And the next month was the worst month I've had. I knew they was gonna fire me. I didn't get any sales. It was so bad that they had your name on the board. They have everybody's sales on the board where everybody can see. My name wasn't even on the board because I hadn't made any sales. It was like God told everybody not to buy something from me. So by this time, I'm just totally frustrated. By this time, I'm ready to give up. By this time, I'm stressed. The job's stressful. They're probably about to get fired. I can't make no money. I'm not good. They're ridiculing me. They, it's not looking good. And it wasn't until one of the salesmen, one of the salesmen said, was talking junk in the store, right? He was just talking, and then one of the ladies was like, other salesman, she was like, "Hey, the owner right there, or the manager right there," and he was like, "You know what? I don't care." He said, "I can go anywhere and make the money. We ain't making them but minimum wage. I can go to Bojangles, I can go to Taco Bell, McDonald's." And it wasn't until he said that I realized how I was in bondage in my mind to this job. I was so stressed about trying to perform good. I was so stressed about trying to get sales. I was so stressed with trying to meet quotas. And the only thing we was doing was making minimum wage. And I could have went to Taco Bell or McDonald's or any job, to be honest, and made that. It wasn't until that point that I realized, why am I in such fear? Why am I stuck? I was in bondage in my mind, stuck to this job as if it was the only, like if there was, as if there was no more other job. The devil done snuck in and had me in bondage in my mind. I want you to see this. To where I was not teaching. I was not writing my newsletters. I wasn't writing the books. I wasn't speaking. I wasn't teaching. I wasn't doing my purpose because I was in bondage in my mind, barely making it. The devil had me right there. And this is all I did. My life was consumed with trying to survive. And so I came home frustrated and I laid across my bed, tears in my eyes. I said, Lord, you're going to have to help me. I need you. I need you. I need you, Lord. I haven't heard from God. I'm in a rough place. I'm stuck. I'm in a rut. I said, Lord, you got to tell me something. You got to tell me something. I'm hurting. I'm in pain. And finally, I hear the voice of God. And this is what he said. He said, open your Bible up. And I'm going to land it on the page you need to be on. So I open up the Bible. I grabbed my Bible, the same Bible. And I just opened it up. And it landed on Psalms chapter 1. So for a minute, I wasn't sure if that was God or my Bible because it was like Psalms chapter 1 right in the, I was like, that probably was just going to do that anyway. That's what I was thinking. And so I began to read Psalms chapter 1. And I only read 3 verses. the first three verses before I started to hear from God deeply. In three verses, I began to read, right, the first verse, and I saw a word, and I said, man, I need to go look up that word. And I got my dictionary and looked up that word, and found reference scriptures, and I began to feel good. I was like, oh man, you know how you hear an old school song that you ain't heard in a long time? You know how you be like, and it take you back the way you was when you heard the song, and you be like, oh, that's my jam right there, that's my joint. That's how I was with the scripture. I was like, oh man, I remember I used to study like this. I had my concordance out, I had my red dictionary out. I'm I was having a good time like I used to do it. I said, oh man, this is how I used to do it right here. This is how I used to get down with that word right here when I was and God let me hear my words. He said, I heard my words and say used to. He said, yeah, you used to study the scriptures like that. Yeah, you used to break down the word. And I had to repent because that shouldn't have been something that I used to do. And on another live, I'm going to teach you what he shared with me in Psalms chapter 1, first three verses. I'm not going to do it on this live. I'm doing another live. And I repented right there before God. And he showed me, he says, you got to get back to the root of things. That's why I titled this, The Root of Things. I had to get back to my roots. I had to get back to what I knew. I had to get back to digging in the scriptures like I used to. And man, I talked with me and the Lord, had a good time. And I realized my distraction. And I repented. And I put my focus and my aim back on God. I put my focus and my aim back on God. And when I did that, I remember I talked to one of my friends, Jessica, one of my best friends, Jessica Prophet. And she said, I remember because it was the guy I did the broadcast with. He asked me to come back on this broadcast, and I was hesitant about going. The reason I was hesitant about going is because I wasn't that same person no more. I know who he's asking to come back on this broadcast, but I'm not that guy anymore. Remember, I'm hurting, I'm wounded. I'm not that guy anymore. And she said, I remember a time where you wouldn't even hesitate if somebody asked you to come speak the word. You wouldn't have even hesitated. She said, you ought to go do that guy's broadcast. And I did. And I shared this message called The Root of Things. But let me go and bring it to a close. I got back focused. I put my aim back on God. And in less than 24 hours, I got a text that says, send your resume to this email. And I sent, because I had my resume on my phone. I sent my resume to that email and got set up for an interview for a job that was better pay, better hours, better work environment. I got to put that up there again. The moment I focus on my purpose is the moment I started to prosper. Man. So I got a better job. Sometimes you got to come to the end of yourself. You're trying to do everything in your own ability. And I'm talking to you who out there who may be feeling stuck, that I mentioned earlier. You may be watching this and maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you feel like you're dragging. Maybe you feel like you're not getting the results that you should be. Sometimes you have to come to the end of yourself. The end of your ability is the start, is the beginning of God's ability. The end of your ability is the beginning of the Lord's ability. Remind me of a quote, Bo Badawan, one of my good friends, Bo Badawan. He says, "When you finally arrive at this point, spent, deflated, completely discouraged, and without hope, that is the end of you. Welcome, you found the beginning of the Lord." I exhausted all of my efforts. I exhausted all of my efforts. And I finally just gave up and just said, "Listen, Lord, you have me. You have my attention. I need you." When I got to the end of me, I found the beginning of the Lord. You need scripture for that? 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. This is the contemporary English version. It says, "My gift of undeserved grace is all you need. My power is strongest when you are weak." This is Jesus talking. He says, "My gift of undeserved grace is all you need." That's all I needed. He says, "My power is strongest when you are weak." Man, that's good stuff there. Oh man, let's see. So I began to work at this selling cars, and at this new better job. Work. It was at a car dealership, and it was better. Well, I wasn't actually selling cars. I actually wound up doing it later, but it was for a different department. It was called BDC. It was a phone call thing, and so it was better pay. It wasn't a commission stuff. I mean, I did get commission, but I got an hourly pay. So if I didn't get commission, I still the commission was bonus. I put it that way. And once I got settled and got back focused, then I started to write on this book. Now, still, the book hadn't come out yet. The book hadn't come out yet, but I was working on it. And before I can get to this book, because of the distractions, of course, it came out in 2014, but it didn't because I got off course, and the book didn't come out to 2018. But there's a reason why, and I share that on my book journey part 4. I'm not sure when I'm gonna do that though, but that'll be the next. Whenever I do the book thing again, that'll be the one I teach about because I still hadn't gotten to the release of this yet. I'm still just trying to get trying to get caught up on bills. I'm trying to do all this. But listen, I want to share this with you before I go. Though God didn't lead me to this job, I chose that job. That was my decision, and it was based off of my ability. Now, even though I went down a different path, this wasn't a path that God had for me, but God is able to use you wherever you're at. All right. So here's a scripture, Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. It says, "You planned evil against me, but God used those same plans for my good." So even though you may be going down the wrong path because of bad decisions, because of whatever, God can use that what was meant for bad and work it and turn it. You follow me? For your good. He can use that same thing. That's why I like the scripture says, "You plan evil against me, but God used those same plans for my good." So what happened was I needed to know sales. Follow me. I want you to get this before I leave. I had to learn sales. I didn't know sales. It wasn't until I got a sales job that I realized that I didn't know sales. Most people that don't go looking for a sales job, most people that are in sales, they just happen to bump, they just whoops and fell into a sales job. Sales job is not one of the things you go looking for. But I wound up doing it, and it was necessary for my assignment. It was necessary for my purpose that I learned sales. I had 2 books out, but I didn't know sales. And you'll think you know sales just because you're selling something, but no, there's an art to sales. There's a process to sales. You got to learn how to close. You got to learn how to. There's a whole art of selling that I needed to know for my vision, for my books, and that along with my customer service is taking my business to another whole level. That along with my customer service has transformed my ministry. So sales is important. So God used that. God used that. Even though it was the worst job I ever had. But God used that worst job to teach me sales. And not only that, but it was important for my next job. That job prepared me for the job when I went to the car dealership. And that job at the car dealership prepared me for when I left and went to the next car dealership. And then I still work a job now. And all of that prepared me for the job I have now. Piece of cake. So just because you're going through something, it may be a struggle. You may hate the job you're in. But ask the Lord, what am I supposed to learn here? What am I supposed to learn here? Listen, I was going to try to do this with a quick 30-minute video, but I'm really kind of just talking to you now. And I know some of you, like I said, it's a little different style than how I normally do. But I really just wanted to share this story with you because you can glean from it. You can take the wisdom from my story and apply it to your life. You may be stuck, but it may be because you're not at the end of you yet. You're still trying in your own ability and not listening to God's direction or not trusting God's direction. But even if you get off course, God told you to go this way, but you went this way. Once you get back focused, God can use that and turn it for your good. And I hope y'all enjoyed this. As far as product offers, let's see. Since we're talking about leading up to this book, and plus I was reading from this book, that story I just shared is in this book. Go to whateverdevil.com and get this book. Hold on. Go to whateverdevil.com and get this book. All right? For those of you who don't have it, I share that story in there. And for those of you who do have the book, that was chapter 8. And guess what chapter 8 is called? I don't know if you can see that light, man, I tell you. You see that? I got back to my roots. So go read that chapter again. It'll bless your life. Hey, look, I got a whole bunch of book journeys, so we still got a few more to go because we still got the volume 2. There's a story with every book. If you want both books, all right? If you want both books, you can get both books. I have a whole Whatever Devil book set. If you want both books, you can get both books for only $19.99. Okay. So each one of them is $14.95. This is $14.95. This is $14.95. Or you can get both for $19.99. It's a package deal. That's the best one to get. Both of these are gonna change your life. This one has testimonies in it, people's testimonies. You just heard one of mine, and this one has Bible testimonies in it. Both of them are powerful. It's gonna change your life. You don't want to go without getting these books. Go to whateverdevil.com and get these books today. Listen, make sure you share this video. This may bless somebody. Uh, Connect with me, follow me on my newsletter, and just go to whatever. Just everything's at whateverdevil.com. Just go visit the website and take a tour. You don't have to buy nothing. Just go take a tour. Look at the things they have to offer. Have the shirts, the merch. All of this is part of my look. This hat, this shirt. All of this is part of the Whatever Devil brand. All these shirts behind me. I don't know if you can see that. Part I got. Look, even this mug is from Whatever Devil. That's a wisdom loading mug. I got a shirt that says the same thing. Trying to get it out of that light because it's white. But see that wisdom loading. See that? Got that on the shirt as well. Man, but go over there. I got free stuff on there to give you too. Whateverdevil.com. Just look. Oh, this one. Check out the website. It's right there. Just type that in and connect with me. That's why I'm sharing this story, because if you knew my story, you connect with me. If you knew my story, you sign up to my newsletter right now. If you knew my story, you buy every book I have. If you knew my story. And if you knew where I'm headed, if you know my assignment, if you know my purpose, you want to be connected. Get connected and stay connected. Listen, I love y'all. Y'all take care, stay up, and stay blessed. And always remember that the word is your